Hello and welcome to the first episode of the MMA Opinion Roundtable. In this show, we will talk about upcoming events in MMA and what is going on in the world of MMA. We will invite admins and followers to talk about what's current in MMA. On this week's episode, I am joined by the MMA Opinion podcast co-host and SBG Cork City head coach Liam O. Griffin. How are you doing, Liam?
Not so bad now. Just eating a Jaffa cake.
And I'm also joined by MMA Opinion admin, Mr. David Hay. How are you doing, David?
What's happening, man? Good to be on.
Very good. So, without further ado, we'll get straight into it. There's a lot to talk about post UFC 257, obviously. Dustin Poirier had a big win. Chandler had a big win. I suppose the first question right out the gate, and I'm going to throw this one to you, David, is what is next for Poirier? Does he fight for the title, and who do you believe he fights against?
I mean, I agree with what he's been saying. I mean, he is the champion, really. If Khabib's not going to come back, then Poirier is the champion. He's the people's champion anyway, at least. So, I mean, as stylistically, obviously the rematch with Conor would be good, but I think if you're looking at rankings and the belt, then it's got to be Oliveira, really, for me.
Yeah.
If he's gonna fight again, this year, it's got to be Oliveira.
And do you believe Michael Chandler is in the running after his impressive performance?
I mean, arguably, is that the best UFC debut ever? I mean, it's got to be up there. I mean, we know that Dan Hooker's got a hell of a chin, man. One of the best chins in the business, and he slept him with the first punch he landed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I like Chandler. I like the way he talks. I like the way he carries himself. I think he's got the right ingredients to be a champion in the UFC, but he's got a few tough tests before we can say that, really.
Yeah, so if you're to play matchmaker, if the UFC came to you tomorrow and they said, we want you to fix this lightweight division now, what 3 to 4 matchups are you making at the top of the division to give it a clearer picture?
Right, well, I'm going to go Dustin and Oliveira. That's for the title. And then, I mean, you've got McGregor. I mean, Conor's right in the mix still, I believe. Do we go Conor... Tony Ferguson, maybe.
Good
I mean, there's Nate Diaz sneaking in there as well. I mean, he's always saying something from his cloud of smoke somewhere. Dos Anjos is in the mix. So I'll probably go maybe Conor Ferguson, Chandler Gaethje. And then you've got to throw Dos Anjos and maybe Hooker or Felder in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, the possibilities are endless. This is one of the most stacked divisions in the UFC, I believe. And, playing matchmaker is going to be difficult in this one, definitely.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, I'll throw the same question to you, Liam, before I give my own opinion. If you're to pick the title fight and maybe a number one contender fight, what way are you leaning towards and who you giving that shot? Is it Dustin Poirier and is Khabib completely out of the picture?
Yeah, Khabib's gone. Khabib's gone. Let's forget about him. Let's move on. I think at this stage, officially, Khabib should retire and they should just announce Poirier as the champion, in which I think they already did for Khabib when Conor was stripped, right? Didn't they do that?
So UFC 229, he fought for the title against Aloy Kenta after he was stripped.
There was somebody that was declared a champion without having to fight for it.
The only one I can think of off the top of my head is Ronda Rousey way back when, but
yeah, no, yeah, that's definitely one, but there was another one in there somewhere. But yeah, I think he has, like, that was the title fight. For all intents and purposes, that was the title fight. As soon as Khabib retires, they should just automatically announce Poirier as the champion. From there, I think I'd like to see Tony Ferguson for Conor.
Yeah.
I would think Oliveira gets next shot. No. There's just, that has to happen.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be I know Conor and John Kavanagh were pushing for
the rematch,
the immediate rematch. I don't think that would do Conor any service. I think Conor just needs to stay active. He's going to return to form as long as he stays active.
Yeah.
Let's get him in there with somebody else like a Tony or a Gaethje. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter who he faces. It just needs more activity. And he'll come back around. He's not going anywhere for the next couple of years, so he's got time on his side there. And just let Poirier and Oliveira get the undisputed title out of the way, and move on from there. Chandler definitely needs another one though.
Yeah. For me, anyway, I think I complete agreement on the title fight. I think it's Poirier versus Oliveira. However, I think Chandler and Gaethje should be next up as in a number one contender bout, and then it's kind of a mishmash of what's left. I would actually like to see RDA going against Ferguson. I think both guys have been around there for a long time. They both fought the elite of the division, and they're the ones just outside that bubble of the top five. And I would also put in Conor against Nate Tree. Look, I know it's people are still seeing it as a gimmick fight, but if Nate is being reintroduced to that division and reintroduced to the top, which is what Dana was almost suggesting, the Conor fight makes sense right now, and I don't think it's ever going to make more sense than it does right now. But touching on that, we're going to have a look at Conor McGregor and what is next for him, and I'm going to come to you first, Liam, on that. Obviously, look, the Diaz fight makes sense in for different reasons, and you're talking about a Tony Ferguson fight. What do you think he needs to do to get back up to that level, to get back up to that championship caliber of fight?
Just activity. That's all. That's really this. I like the thing about Conor is that he's got probably one of the best abilities to self-analyze post-fight. Yeah, we never really have to go far from what he analyzes himself after a fight. He's quite obvious. He's quite honest. If he fucks up, he says he tells you exactly where he fucked up, and activity is definitely something he needs to look at. Like he's going to fix that leg kick check defense now. That's a done deal now at this stage. So that's an obvious thing. But yeah, he just needs activity.
Yeah, and a lot of people kind of touch on the Conor press conferences as if he's making excuses for his performance. But if you actually look at it, he's generally just kind of breaking down the fight himself.
Yeah, he's doing a post-mortem in real time.
Exactly. And a lot of people see that and they say, oh, he's making excuses about the leg. But he's not. He said straight up that Dustin was the better man and his game plan was better on the night. Just throwing it to you, Dave, there. Do you think it was a subpar performance by Conor, and do you think there's implicating factors there? Do you believe he can come back better and motivated to be better in the near future?
I mean, he's changed his whole persona really in the lead up to this fight. He's gone to like nice Conor. I'm not sure whether I prefer nice Conor over crazy Conor, but to be honest, when he was walking to the octagon for that Poirier fight, he looked the most nervous I've ever seen him look. If it is nervous, but he didn't have that same
energy,
charisma, that same aura.
Yeah,
and I do think it was a subpar performance. Yeah, I think he was concentrating far too much on the boxing and neglect where are his kicks, where are his side kicks, his oblique kicks, what that he's relied on before and used to perfection before. They weren't there.
Yeah.
But I think Conor's the technician and Dustin's the brawler, and I still believe Conor's got the better skill set, but he can't match the heart of Poirier. He just couldn't match the heart and the desire and the will to win on that night. And like you said, the best man won.
Yeah.
I do believe he'll be back, yeah. I think he fights twice this year again, if he's true to his word and he means what he says.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I do see Conor coming back this year, and as I said, hopefully it's a big match. Hopefully it's one that they can still sell, and I do believe just for that reason that the Diaz 3-1 makes sense at this time. I'm going to move on a little bit from the lightweights, and even though it's still a lightweight technically, but we're going to move down the division quite a way. You had Nik Lentz put in, and we talked about it on the podcast, Liam. It was a very much a game performance out of Nik Lentz, but did take a lot of punishment. And he has since retired on social media. And that's something we kind of echoed in the podcast, that is something we did want to see. And there's a lot of fighters of that ilk and that era that let it go too long. Do you think, I suppose I'll throw it to you first, David, do you think it was the right time for Nick to hang them up? And do you think that there's, do you think he went too long already, or do you think it was the right time right now to hang them up?
I mean, the too long already thing is hard to say because I'm not a fighter. I've not been in there. I don't live the fighter's life. So I mean, I guess you could say that only the man himself knows when it's time to give it up. But obviously, he's a true veteran, Nik Lentz. I think he's been in the UFC well over 10 years. over 20 fights, I think. So, yeah, he said himself that he's only got 40% vision in one eye, I think, after the Arnold Allen fight. And that was what forced him to retire. So, I mean, I think it's good that he has retired. He's made the right choice. It can't be easy. But if you've only got 40% vision in one eye, I mean, I guess things are right with one eye, but
yeah, no, definitely. You're going in there compromised, and there's no fighter should be going in there compromised. Liam, just basically the same sentiment. You did ask for it in no uncertain terms on our own podcast about Nik Lentz, that he'd taken too much damage. Now, the one thing I would say is it was a game performance, and he was in the fight up until the third round.
Yeah,
like there's obviously more to give there, but you agree that it is the right time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very, very hard to know when the end of the line is. But, like, the vision thing is, like, it couldn't be clearer, pardon the pun. But, like, with an already compromised vision, that he's got another 40 years to live, 40, 50 years. I might be actually giving him too little years there at this stage. But it's the quality of life towards the end of his life is that you need to watch out for. And the difference in 2 or 3 fights at this stage could have a completely different effect on the end of his life, when, like, the life that he lives with his kids and his grandkids and everything. I don't think any loss of vision is worth an extra fight or two, especially when you're not heading towards a title shot.
Yeah. And we touched on this on the podcast. When that time comes that you're no longer fighting to win that belt, that you're just fighting paycheck to paycheck, and you're not, there's no realistic goal towards anything success, major success. It is probably time to hang him up. Yeah.
And I mean, at this stage, he's got enough skills. Like, I mean, he's obviously in phenomenal shape. He's in the prime of his technical ability. This is the perfect time to become like a seminar coach or other things that you can still do with your body at this age without getting more brain damage. He could, set up a kind of an instructional online series with a YouTube channel and lots of different things, and arguably within a couple of years get up to where he's already what he's earning now already. And that's much more sustainable in the long run.
Yeah. Or he could go back to the circus. I believe his family came from the circus originally. That
awesome.
was that's where the nickname came from. I do want to move on and look at 2021 as a whole so far. It's only been 3 fight cards in the UFC, but we've seen a lot of underdogs win. We had Alessio De Chirico, we had Dustin Poirier, Marina Rodriguez, Marcin Prachnio, just to name a few. We have 6 title fights and 6 big title fights coming up. You have Usman Burns, Nunes Anderson, Jan Izzy, Jan Sterling, Volk versus Ortega, and Stipe versus Francis, all in the next kind of 5 to 6 weeks region. No, it's about 7 to 8 weeks. But I want to come to you here, Liam, first. Do you think this is a trend that's just coincidental at the moment, or do you see this trend continuing into the year? And for you, out of those title fights, maybe some of them wouldn't be necessarily considered underdogs, but is there any new champions that you foresee kind of continuing on the trend here?
Ooh. So when you're asking me, is it a trend that are you asking, is there going to be a lot of title fights throughout the year?
No, I'm asking about the underdog. So
okay.
Are we going to continue 2021 with the story of the underdog so far? No, when we've gotten up to the main events in all the cards so far, underdogs haven't, with the exception of Dustin Poirier, who maybe shouldn't have been an underdog in hindsight, but he was the underdog and it was kind of deemed as a shock. Are we going to see that trend continue throughout the year? And looking at the big fights coming up, do you see any of those pick you up a victory?
So I'm going to put on my engineering hat here for a second, and I don't think there's actually, I'm not 100% sure that statistically more underdogs have been successful this year than any other year. I think it's just been more obvious because the underdogs that have come through this year have come through in the absence of a lot of the names that were kind of taken off the cards due to COVID. Yeah. So we've had a very unusual year where we've had like guys who literally started their UFC career and within 2 or 3 fights are in the top 10.
Yeah.
And that's unusual. But I'm not sure statistically have the dogs done better this year than they've done in any other year. So will it continue? I don't see why not.
You were saying it didn't start to begin with, as opposed to is it
Correct.
going to continue?
I think it's just there's upsets in every card in every month of the year. So, and I don't think it's been there's been a few notable ones, but I don't think it's been statistically significantly greater than any other time.
So he's completely after bursting my theory wide open, but I am going to throw the same question to you, David. Is there any of those title fights coming up in the next 8 weeks that you see any of the underdogs or maybe the challengers coming through, and who do you think is the most likely underdog to pick up a victory?
I mean, as far as underdog, I'm not so sure that fits, but this particular one. But as far as challenger, I think Adesanya probably has the best chance.
Yeah.
In his matchup against Jan.
And actually, by the bookmakers, he's the favourite in that, so Jan will be the underdog.
Well, there you go. So got that one wrong straight off the bat. But,
Welcome
yeah,
to
I
the
think
club.
obviously, I don't know. Again, I haven't looked at the odds for these yet, so I don't know. But I think Ngannou Miocic would be tasty. That'd be interesting. I think Ngannou could easily knock him clean out, but.
Yeah. And again, not to burst your bubble, but Stipe is the underdog in that one again.
Yeah. But again, Stipe is much equal chance as winning. I mean, he's Stipe, you know. I do love Stipe. But again, I mean, as far as title fights, I don't think Aljamain Sterling will be able to dethrone Petr Yan. I can't see that one. I just think Yan's too good. But I mean, Sterling's got the wrestling, maybe.
Yeah.
But.
So who else have we got there? You have got Nunes and...
You have Nunes versus Anderson. That's in March.
Okay, so that's not one for the underdog.
No chance there, no.
Although I said the same thing about Poirier.
Here's the thing, though. Anyone that saw Megan Anderson's performance last year, no, it was January of last year.
Yeah.
First round KO. She's a very big girl. She has power in her hands.
Oh, I wouldn't fight her like.
I wouldn't be ruling her out. I think she's one of the bigger underdogs here, but I certainly wouldn't be ruling her out.
Who else is there? What other one did we not? So you have
Usman Burns. That's in 2 weeks' time. You have we touched on Adesanya versus Blachowicz. We touched on Jan versus Sterling. Volkanovski Ortega is an interesting one for me, and we touched on the heavyweight one as well.
So is Volkanovski the favourite or the underdog in that one?
Volkanovski is the favourite in that one.
Yeah. No, I don't see Ortega taking that one either.
For me, I can actually see a few of the titles swapping hands here. I know I've bigged up Megan Anderson. She will put up a performance against Nunes, but I can't see her getting it done over the 5 rounds. I was going to say 3 rounds. Usman Burns, I've been cautious of betting against Usman because every time I've done so, that he's proved me wrong. I think the big challenge for Usman in the very near future could very well be Hamzat Chimaev. That was my call at the start of the year.
You just got a hard on
to it.
Now.
I do a little bit, yeah, but that's besides the point. With regards to the Jan Blachowicz, Adesanya, I'm very much with David here. I think Adesanya is a little bit too good for Jan Blachowicz. But again, I've gone against Jan in the past and that stung me.
No, I'd agree with you on this one. I think it's a bad stylistic matchup for Jan Blachowicz on this one.
Go with a skinny guy, man. Always with a skinny guy.
Always a skinny guy.
With regards to Petr Yan versus Sterling, I can actually see Sterling taking this one. I think he's been long overdue the shot, and I think he has what it takes to get in there with confidence and just impose his game plan, as opposed to getting starstruck by it and to go in there. If he went in there a little bit greener, I think I'd be more worried for him. But I think he can make this an ugly fight and just out wrestle Petr Yan for the 25 minutes. Volkanovski Ortega, I see Ortega. I think the version of Ortega we saw last, and this touches again on getting your shot too early. I think when Ortega went in against Max, he was a little bit deer in the headlights. I think the performance we saw from Ortega against Korean Zombie, it was just absolutely frightening. I think that version of Ortega is too good for Volkanovski. And in the Stipe Francis one, I'm going to do what I didn't do all last year and what I didn't do all the year before. I'm going to put some respect on Stipe's name, and I'm going to pick Stipe in that one as another underdog.
So you're going with quite a few underdogs there, so
I have a few underdogs picked. Some are champs, but some are like I've Sterling, Ortega, Izzy to pick up.
So you're going to be rolling in it by the end of the year. like we're going to be coming to you for...
Judging by my bets so far, and we do the Pro-Ams predictions, and I'm 4-8 overall for my bets. It's the worst start I've ever had to a year.
What's the nickname for someone who's 4-8 and twice as many losses as victories? What's that called again? A 50 or?
It's a plus 500 is what they call someone with half the amount of losses as wins. I'm a minus 500. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, it is what it is. But we'll move on to Dana White. I really want to get into this. So Dana White, he's always been on the warpath, but it seems particularly this year, for whatever reason, he's come in hard for various different reasons. You have all the Khabib talk. You have a shift in political power in America, which has obviously upset him. And you have his war now on illegal streamers. Now, he touched on in the press conference that he's caught someone and that person pulled their stream and all this and encouraged people to buy the fight legally.
And publicly apologised.
Which I don't believe for a second. I think it's all scaremongering.
Well, we would have seen it by now. Somebody would have reposted that like, by all accounts, it was a publicly written letter that was posted on his Facebook stream or his Facebook page or something.
Yeah.
One of the media outlets would have picked that up and reposted it.
And it's supposedly one of the big guys as well. So it's for me, it's absolute nonsense. I'll come to you with this first, David. This is obviously scaremongering, but do you think the timing of this couldn't be worse for the UFC and for Dana White in particular, given the issues surrounding their own pay-per-view stream on last weekend and how that went with the streams dropping in the west coast of America, big issues in Ireland as well, trying to view the stream. What do you make of Dana's kind of attack on the illegal streamers?
I mean, I see his point. I see where he's coming from with it. Obviously, he's not going to be happy, but I don't know whether it's some sort of midlife crisis that he's having and why it's all of a sudden he's having such a paddy about it. But yeah, like I say, I agree with his viewpoint. Obviously, I agree with you as well. I don't think any of the stuff he came out with is true. I mean, you know, who is this guy then? Someone, like Liam said, someone would have found this out. Someone would have shared this information with us. So, but yeah, I mean, like you say, it's a bad time for it, but it's always going to be, as long as there is live events, there's going to be live streamers, and that is just a part of life. He can't catch them all, you know. Yeah. I mean, the FBI have got bigger fish to fry, haven't they? So,
and he might even catch the American ones, but he won't catch the Russian ones.
No, absolutely not. Worldwide, and even in America, anyone that uses a VPN. That they're going to be hidden from this. Now, obviously, he's not attacking each individual person or coming after each individual person who's streaming. He's going after the people that are putting out the streams. But I even think at that,
there's a legal loophole there. They're not hosting the streams, so you can't catch
the
websites.
It's a victimless crime, you know. So
yeah, well, I don't know about it being a victimless crime. There is obviously they're a multi-billion-dollar organization, so that's their argument. But at the end of the day, they are putting out a product for people to pay for. My issue is I have no problem paying for it, but make it accessible and make sure that it is actually working and live and doesn't drop halfway through. I wouldn't expect that out of a free stream.
I mean, he probably raided his own server room, didn't he? The memes, by the way, have been
absolutely they were brilliant.
Yeah, the memes have been very funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
And staying on the topic of Dana White, I do want to touch on that meeting that he had with Khabib. And where his head was at coming out of that. So look, my understanding of this was that he went in, he had the meeting with Khabib to try and convince him, and he came out and he made this big announcement that maybe he's coming back, and that Khabib told him that if someone looked impressive, he would come back. Khabib then talks to the Russian media and says that, no, I won't be pressured into fighting. I won't disappoint my mother like that. Liam, I want to come to you here first. Do you think there was any truth coming out of that meeting that Khabib was making a return, or do you think this was more of Dana's rhetoric, just trying to kick it down the road and to delay so that he didn't have to put a title on the line on Saturday night? And a follow-up, why is that beneficial for him to not have a title on the line on Saturday night if Khabib's not interested in coming back?
So I think he's been hanging out with Donald Trump for too long, and just basically his alternative facts and his fake news is just, he kind of thinks that if he says it, it's going to be true kind of thing. So yeah, it's complete and utter horseshit. Why is it beneficial? I suppose just to keep the shine on Khabib, you know, just to not like you never want to talk down your biggest asset, like, so, you know, I think, and I think there was a bit of hope in there for Dana as well. Had Conor won that fight, we would be having a totally different conversation. That Khabib fight would still be on the table if Conor won.
Yeah,
I think the fact that he lost it has just banished it for good.
Yeah, and to David as well, you touched on that Dustin Poirier should be the king of the division now and should be the champ. So you're obviously of the opinion that Khabib is not coming back. Do you see him coming back at any point? Are we done with Khabib? Or is it just that the lightweight division needs to move on right now?
I feel like I don't feel like he's as motivated by the money as other people are. I do think with his values and his religious beliefs and stuff like that, I think he is. You know, I think that the whole meeting with Dana was a bit of a PR stunt. A bit of a waste of everybody's time, really, with the outcome and the anticlimax of it all. But I feel like he's got to make a decision. Either Khabib or Dana White's got to make a decision, and you know, he's not the champion anymore. Like I said, Poirier is the, you know, uncrowned champ, and I think the division should move on. In the meantime, they can't hang around and wait. And if he does decide to come back, then that's something they can discuss further down the road. But definitely should move on for now. Yeah.
Yeah, and finally, I do want to touch on the talks of that Dana White said after that he's moving to Abu Dhabi, and I want to tie in other promotions to this, like Bellator. So Bellator still haven't announced their schedule for this year yet. Now we're nearly at the end of January, and we still haven't got a schedule for this year. And Dana's talking about that there might be issues coming down the line with regards to putting on shows, and certainly going back to Fight Island. With the treat that we had in 2020, now we did have a little period where there was no live events, but there was no sports worldwide. Is 2021 going to be a year where we get much less cards? Are we going to struggle to get more MMA in? Is it not going to be as consistent, certainly as last year? But are promotions under much more strain and much more pressure now, and financial pressure, even to get shows going? I want to come to you here first, David. Do you think 2021 is the year where the shows are much more spread out and they're much more sparse? Or do you think that all the promotions, once Bellator get the ball rolling initially, and once UFC find their kind of feet in America, that we're going to see a busy schedule of fights? Or do you think it's going to be less or so than last year?
I mean, I think the powers that be will do everything they can to make sure there's less events, what with safety regulations, social distancing, etc. I think what Dana pulled off last year was unbelievable. You know, credit to him. He made sure we were all treated to loads of MMA, so we can't knock him for that. But there's a reason why the UFC put on so many events and other places like Bellator didn't. You know, money talks. They've got the revenue, they've got the ability. Dana's got the connections. But I think 2021 we'll see a lot less cards. Maybe not a lot less, but I don't think we'll have the splurge of cards we had like middle of last year, towards the end of last year. I mean, you know, restrictions are getting tighter. You know, the fear is spreading. So,
yeah. And the same to you, Liam. Are you concerned about, because I know for yourself as well, you have amateur fighters here, and you're looking forward to 2021 because amateur MMA hopefully will reopen. And there are good signs to say that it is going to reopen, and that we kind of get that push towards more MMA, and that from the ground level up, that there's a bit of momentum building. However, it seems to be that it's kind of slowing down at the top. Are you concerned that this is going to have a knock-on effect and that amateur MMA is going to go the same way? Or do you think that we are going to see the return of amateur MMA and lower level MMA on a more consistent scale this year?
No, I think the first 6 months is going to be slower. And then I think we're going to get back to normal before the end of the year. And two big things are pointing me in that direction. Number one is the Olympics.
Yeah,
they're going to sort something out for the Olympics. The Olympics will be the impetus for something big to kind of be figured out. Whether that's a kind of new procedures on creating bubbles or whatever. But that like you're talking. Dave mentioned there that money talks, and you know, the organizations that have the money to be able to pull something off will do it.
Yeah.
The Olympics is the creme de la creme of a sporting organization. They're going to figure something out, and then everybody else will benefit off the back of that. I know Bellator are currently matching.
Yep.
I don't. They're going to be obviously keeping their American fighters in America, and maybe I hope that they will do the Milan bubble again within the next 3 months. I'm hoping. I have no inside scoop on that yet. But with regards to the amateurs, the fact that a lot of the amateur events are in Asia will benefit because those countries are doing better. They're just doing better in general with regards to vaccine rollouts and having events continuing. So like on a national scene, it's gotten to the stage now where we kind of know we're in this for a bit longer than we had hoped. You know, like throughout 2020 it was like, okay, we'll get to November and then we should be back to normal. We now know we're going to be at least the next 6 months in and out of lockdowns or in and out of restrictions or whatever. And now what we're starting to see is, okay, how can we do this in spite of lockdowns? So we have kind of discussions going on as to how to declare elite level athletes and how can you keep them training, how can you get them competing in safe environments. Pretty much doing what UFC did last year for the professional shows, but trying to do that on an amateur basis. We've got 2 pro-amateur shows going on in Ireland this next 12 weeks. So you have Clan Wars up north in Ireland, and you have Cage Legacy in Dublin. Hopefully those 2 go ahead. They're behind closed doors, and if they can go ahead and if they can prove a model there, well then that'll open up the floodgates and we'll be back to normal.
Very good. And just before I let you go, I have one last question for you. So for David first, what are you most looking forward to in the coming weeks, and I suppose in 2021 in general? And then you might let us know where we can find you on social media.
For me, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the lightweight division, all the will they, won't they stuff. I'm looking forward to the stacked cards we've got coming up. Looking forward to the title fights, Ortega, Volko, Adesanya, and Jan Blachowicz. Social media, you can find me at the MMA Pocket on Instagram and YouTube. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
No problem at all, David. It was a pleasure to have you on. And Liam, same question. What are you most looking forward to in 2021, and where can we find you on social media?
Mostly looking forward to return at Bellator because we're up next. We have Ryan the Hulk Spillane ready, waiting to go, in great shape. We'll fight his mother. You know, whoever, just give us a time, give us a date. We're ready to rock. We're there now. So as soon as Bellator announce the European show, we're packing our bags already. That's what I'm most looking forward to. I think the UFC will trundle along the way it is. Looking forward to seeing Dean Barry make his UFC debut. Get back in there for the Irish, and let's see how that goes.
A new face, yeah.
And then social media at Liam OG Griffin on Twitter is the best place to get me for MMA stuff. A lot of sciencey stuff going on there too, but MMA, I'll talk to you about MMA on there. Give me an old follow.
No problem, and thank you very much, Liam, for coming on. We will be doing the show weekly, guys, and thank you very much for tuning in. Be sure and follow us on all social medias at the MMA Opinion, and give us a like and subscribe on YouTube as well. Thank you very much for tuning in.